Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. I had the privilege of having Ellie ask me some months ago about being here in the workshops, which is lovely. I last did it in 2019, so it's lovely to be back. It's like being home, as it were. But she gave me that question. Please read the question and tell me what your answer would be.
Yes.
That was my answer. There endeth the workshop. At least so I thought, right? Well, I wanted to dig into this a little bit more and try and understand, okay, well, what are all of the parameters and factors in this? So there's a PowerPoint which I want you to know that when these 2 days are done, this will be sent to you as an email so that you've actually got this, but more importantly, you've got the references that come with it. Because all of the references are within the last few years, including this year. So I'd just like you to see some of the things which came out. But I don't want to spend time just on a PowerPoint, nor on what just the literature said. The reason that you've got a worksheet is so that we can actually hear your story and your perspectives. It's more important that it be about us than about that. That being the case, we have a slide I need you to know exists. This is all about the fact that we are talking about stress in the workplace, stress that may lead you to distress. And there are times when some of the things we will talk about may, for some, be a bit triggering, because not always does stress and distress stay at work. Sometimes it follows you home. So if there is anything that we talk about in these next 40 minutes that you feel is a bit triggering, or uncomfortable, if you wish to leave the room, just know that you can. There's a safe place that you can go out the door, you can go onto the balcony. If you need somebody with you, just ask. We just want you to feel safe. Now, stress in the workplace, is it a pain in the bum? Yes, it may well be. And from an institution's perspective, well, they have views on things. It may mean you're not at work much. It might mean that if we recruit people, it's hard to hang on to them. It could mean that morale is not so flash. So that's the way it could be from an institution's perspective, but that's not what I'm interested in for us. I want to zero it down, bring it down to our level. How do we as individuals, as human beings, deal with this whole issue of stress? This is where your worksheet comes in. For the next 7 or 8 minutes, I just like you to just zing from your brain to your pen, really your first thought, your first reaction. You've got a double-sided page, and as you read the section, just write down what first comes to your brain. And then if you're happy that we talk about it, you can either share it, or if you'd rather not share it, you don't have to. But zing down what you feel comes first to your brain, and then let's see where we travel to from there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being willing to write your thoughts down. So what I want to do now is not worry about the workplace so much, but I'm thinking about you and interested in your thoughts, your experiences. So as we talk about causes of workplace stress, this is section A. So as you will have seen, there's 3 sections. So section A is causes of workplace stress. And the first place where we begin is looking at the demands that are placed on you, who is placing those demands on you, what those demands might actually appear to be like. And whilst we do have a bit of a list up here as to what's been identified in the literature, is there things that you're willing to share about your perception of the demands in your workplace which cause you stress? Is there anything you'd like to share or be willing to share with our group?
Managing other people.
Managing other people, yeah. And what part about that causes you stress?
Well, I'm not very good with confrontation, so I find it quite challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so the confrontation is brought from them. Yeah. And the confrontation, how does that make you feel?
Regretting my career choice.
Okay. But really, is that significant? Yeah. So what do you do then? Do you avoid confrontation, or
I do,
you do? Does that then have an impact on you doing the work you want to do?
No, but it affects my morale for myself, and I don't think it's very helpful to them either.
Okay.
You know.
Have you tried the sandwich?
Pardon?
Have you tried the sandwich?
What's that?
It's where you have something nice, something horrible,
Oh yeah, shit
and then
sandwich.
something nice.
Shit sandwich.
Yeah, that's right. It's all to the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, and I agree, but that doesn't necessarily help. When you have quite strong personalities,
Yeah.
and I'm not one, it's quite challenging then to, address issues.
Yeah. We may dig into that a little bit more, because one aspect of this was to look at the interpersonal relationships, which really are effectively what you're saying. If we were to look at a list like this, do you find that there are times when you're perhaps being asked to do jobs and you're not really understanding what they're asking you to do?
I would say the third point down, lack of empowerment and autonomy.
Yeah,
I work in the same team as Penny,
yeah,
and sometimes managing staff but not having the autonomy to really be able to help them, so passing the complaints up to a higher level and being told, well, it's up to you to manage, but you can't actually change anything.
okay, so you're not, yeah, so there's the lack of empowerment that you're seeing right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have any of you got any other things that pop out to you at this particular
Having
section?
the responsibility to having the responsibility of something, but got no power to change it.
Yeah. So it's
Like
like,
it's like antibiotic stewardship in some ways.
yeah,
You're told that you've got to be responsible on what patients should have antibiotics, but really you're not the doctor. You can't prescribe it. So but you're given all this responsibility. It's just added stress. You don't.
yeah.
I can't do anything about it.
And how then does it make you feel? Do you feel like there's a lack of annoyed?
I feel really quite annoyed that they're putting more burdens on nurses when we can't do anything about that. We're bad enough trying to deal with what we can do and be responsible for and act on. That's hard enough. Without being told that, well, they shouldn't be on that antibiotics and you have a bit of responsibility to tell the doctor. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. So there is poor delineation,
Yeah.
unrealistic demands, an inability to do anything about it.
There's also the pressure that's trying to push you beyond your competence.
Yes.
And you've
Yes.
got that level of competence that you shouldn't go beyond. I mean, we don't have a ceiling anymore, nurses
Yes.
and healthcare assistants. We can do whatever we want, but we have to have that competence signed off. We have to be trained properly. We can't do anything beyond it without that level of competence
Yes.
being tested.
Do you feel, you've actually mentioning to me too, particularly Sandra, with what you just said, this idea of multiple tasks hitting you at the same time. Georgina said much of the same thing. So,
Interrupted them, I find, doing one job and someone comes and says, well, actually I need you to think about this job, and I specifically write in the notes for junior staff members, when this happens, can you do A, B or C? And so then they come and interrupt you and say, this has happened, so can I do A, B, C? So well, I put that in the notes. They said, yeah, but I wanted to double check. So I
right,
put that in the notes so you don't have to come and interrupt me, because
Then we make mistakes.
because I'm with a patient and therefore my patient time has been disrupted to do something that I've already spent time doing for that patient.
Does that make you feel cross?
Yeah.
okay,
I'm not very good at telling them. I can say, that's why I put it in the notes. Yeah, but I didn't double check. Yes,
so
but that's
are
what's
your
in the notes.
juniors getting adequate mentorship, do you think, or not?
So busy that sometimes you can't spend time with them. But I try and make an effort to sit down and say, look, this is in the notes. If I put it in the notes, it's because I'm happy for you to do it
Yeah,
with the authorisation of the notes rather than of me.
I think they do get adequate mentorship. I
Do
think
they?
Historically, they were managed by somebody that very much micromanaged, and that's how they
do.
taken their
Who
place.
do you see as having the role of mentorship? Is that your job, or whose job is this role of mentorship?
Everyone's.
Ah, tell me more. How would that work?
So, like, if you have a particular interest in something and you, like, read around the subject and stuff, that means that generally you might know more about that subject than somebody else who is, like, the same level as you. Therefore, like, it's your responsibility to share that knowledge, and that makes your whole team up their game a little bit.
And do you get the opportunity to do that?
Yeah,
And how do you feel when you do?
yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
trouble is in some people, knowledge is power, and they hold on to that knowledge,
Yes.
don't they? Because
Yes.
it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a right job for them, is it?
No. No, it's not.
Is there anything on that list that some of you may relate to? What stands out? I can see you nodding your head, dear girls, so...
I think, well, all of it really, I think everyone can relate to, but definitely the opportunity to enhance skills and poor access to promotion is
Oh,
definitely
really?
one, I think.
Okay.
Certainly, because you've got to be released to do whatever it is you're doing, or if you need a budget, you need your CPD budget, and you know, you're over budget, so you can't access
Can't
that.
do anything.
So it's one of those, I think, especially in tissue viability, it's something
Yeah.
you learn a lot on the job. So a lot of the time it's good to challenge yourself by tending to external sort of accreditation, and it can be quite difficult to access that, I think.
Right. So that's a driver for you to come and do things like this, right? Aren't we lucky to have you here? So do you sometimes find with the rest of our group, do you find that you would like to enhance your skills to be doing further training, but there is either no budget or support to do that, and so you then feel like you're constantly stagnant? Yeah, that's a shame to be in that position. Do any of you find that this is a problem as far as you getting from one client to another client, or even just getting to work, or even home from work? That's something
It's
I've...
within our team.
Is it within your team?
Yeah, if people book in a patient for an area they're not familiar with, and someone gave me 5 minutes to get across Gloucestershire once, and I thought, well,
Oh, that's good, yeah. So you had a light aircraft, right? Yeah, or you went by helicopter.
We've lost a lot of staff through a two-tier system where people with a base, where it were county-wide, so we've got 5 clinics county-wide,
Right.
Gloucestershire, big county, so we all get base and we tend to work in that base, and then it was decided to have peripatetic staff members. So if I was to travel from Cirencester over to Lydney, I'd get travel time, but the new staff members don't get travel
Don't get
time,
that.
so they've got to work potentially an extra 3 hours that day.
Right. So there's
we
the...
can't retain those staff.
No, because that's not a fair
And it
playing
creates
field, is it?
A lot of unfairness and resentment.
Yeah.
especially in Gloucestershire, it's quite difficult to get around depending on where you're based. So if someone's based in the Forest of Dean, it's actually very difficult to get out of. So
Yeah.
people on the other side who it's going to take half an hour to get from one clinic to the other, but people who then are based where it's going to take an hour and 20 minutes, and so people were sort of thinking, well, this-
So really at a
that's
management level, that's not equitable.
2 months,
Yeah.
2 months,
Yeah.
and then half an example.
If we go from the demands of things now and we start to look at physical impacting factors, here's a list, but what did you write down? If we had to say what are problems with your physical environment, what did you say?
I have to sit on the floor most days. I don't know how to do that when I'm 70.
No.
Yeah, because a lot of my patients are not physically able to lift their against legs up onto the couch.
Yeah.
Or I don't have the stuff to go on. I have to kneel or I have to go around the back to see the wound because ulcers always grow at the back of the leg. Which is very
Always where you can't see
Yeah.
them, that's right, Mandy.
So for me, literally some days my legs and my knees and my back are killing me.
Yeah.
I've got to do this until I'm like 78.
Yeah.
Retirement ages now.
Yeah.
So,
So really you're envisaging your own knee replacements in 10 and 15 years'
and there's no
time.
NHS for that, so yeah, I'm good for that.
Yeah. Look, other groups we've had today have said exactly the same thing about your physical positioning and the lack of aids to maybe help you work better with less harm to yourself. That's been a big one that's come up today. Is there anything else you've written that's either on there or not on the screen?
Ample IT equipment.
Tell me, because I think you're hitting a nerve here now. Thanks, Andrea.
So many times I've done an assessment and then next minute it's vanished.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, or you've not started an assessment and then gone to see the patient and gone back and
And
it's
it's all
not there.
vanished.
Yeah.
Now I've noticed you're not turning grey yet, Andrea, so...
I'm surprised.
The thing is, you could weep with despair, couldn't you? Because
Yeah.
our patients leave the clinic and then it crashes, and then you've got to try and just remember all
Yeah.
the things you spoke about for the last hour and a half. It is,
Yeah.
you really do just want to.
And are all your
what am I
records
doing?
electronic, or are they they're all
Yeah.
electronic? So this is a disaster when that happens.
Yeah,
So
well,
you
it was
can't
disaster.
find like medical history, information, blood tests, yeah. And
Yeah.
then different areas where you visit.
Yeah.
You just can't find anything anymore.
So then when it comes then to deliver care, you're hamstrung. Yeah, that's
And
not
in the
great.
community, I bank, I do extra shifts in the community. I spend 2 hours the night before I do a shift reading through the patient notes because there is nowhere in Gloucestershire that you can access
Yeah,
a patient's
Okay.
notes on a laptop.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
impossible. And you just hope that nothing's changed by the
I
time
think
you
in Wales
through
they've
that door.
gone back to paper notes.
Yeah.
Because the signal's so rubbish.
They
Yeah.
never really went on to.
Well, I think they
Okay,
no one
so
should
there's
have. I think it's
been-
terrible.
If you were to look at that list there, this comes from both health services and also non-health services, that list.
And also as well, you've got a system that just goes one after another, which has every single services on. So when you're trying to find yours, you have to travel, you have to go all the way back. You can't compare from your last assessment to this.
Right, so you can't even access information then.
Because you're scrolling all the way back.
And some,
Yeah.
some patients' notes are so time consuming because they're so slow.
Yeah, and that comes back to one of the points on demand is your lack of time, which it must only then impact on your inability to have sufficient clinical time because of all of that.
Whereas our paperwork, you could go back to the last assessment, compare it.
That's right, but
And
you've not
file
got that
your
opportunity.
notes, you
Yeah,
can
and
condense
you can
them
see
to small new notes.
And the fact that you're talking about this here, it must mean then have you had the opportunity within an institution to elevate this
Oh, yeah,
through your
no,
management?
no.
So this is not an unknown, it's just undealt with.
Survey, yeah.
Not unknown, but
Is there
undealt
a
with.
disconnect between your experiences and what the service is offering and how to improve them? Why does that never seem to align? And who makes the decisions about how the processes and the systems are run?
Well, I think they don't talk to the people that
Actually
actually
doing
talk.
it.
They don't actually talk to the people that are actually using it.
Yeah, and so that is this disconnect.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
talk
we
to
might
them.
come back to that again a bit later
They
on.
don't care, they want it to work. Somebody's paid a fortune for these systems
Yeah.
and you will make it work.
Yeah.
But the people
Yes.
who made the decision to buy those systems are too far removed from what's
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they must be employed by some IT company to employ lots of IT people because you phone them up and I'm not an IT person. I don't
Yeah.
want to be an IT person. I have to do the IT person's job and my job.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to come and do the patient's
And
job.
actually
I
that's
want to do
one of the
theirs.
things that has popped up is actually asking you to do jobs which are not necessarily part of your remit or role.
Yeah.
Now we'll keep moving forward because what I want to do is to then look at saying, well, how is this affecting you with the relationships you have at work, or that may then spill over to the relationships at home. Do any of you find, as we've looked at this list before throughout today, we've already mentioned the idea of mentorship, but do any of you experience bullying? Yes, you do.
I think you do. I think people look at bullying and think, oh, it has to be that, you're this, you're that, and pushing. But I think there's a mission that comes with bullying as well. If you go to a manager and say, I'm really struggling with time, and they send you on a time management course.
Yeah.
Or,
absolutely.
I've had to stay after an hour. Well, why have you stayed? Well, you saw me here last night working till late. So I think in that regard it is.
It's your fault that you're not
Yeah.
It's
achieving
always
what
back
they
on you.
want
Nobody's
to.
saying, well,
Yeah.
what can
Yeah.
we do about this?
So it's maybe not overt, but that's subtle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the same
overt,
thing.
Yeah, passive aggressive.
Very
the
much so.
scapegoatism. I see in teams. I've seen it. I've worked in an area for a long time, and I'm not quite part of this team, but I'm based there, and I've seen 4 people leave because they're the next scapegoat for that team. And then when that they've got them out, the team is all hunky-dory for a while. And then there's somebody else who would think, oh, who's going to be the next scapegoat? I can see it.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
horrible
word,
environment
Environment,
to
yeah.
witness and to be aware of.
So
and one of those-
scapegoating's perennial then, it
Yes.
keeps carrying on.
Yes.
I think yours seem to be the problem. If you're, so and so saying there's a problem again, and it's not looked at, it's more sort of like they've got enough to do, I guess, and you're giving them more to do. They've got their own.
Yeah, nobody feeds anything upwards anymore. They
Right.
don't feed it up because
Right.
they don't want to be seen as a troublemaker. They don't want to. They
Yeah.
have to suck it up. They all
Right.
suck up all the issues and don't ever complain about anything. Not necessarily complain. Constructive criticism to the manager ever
No,
these days.
because you're not going to get an outcome and you're worried then about a negative back in your direction.
Bullying can be so subtle and it can rob you of your confidence completely.
Yes.
Yeah, because you try and sort it out and then you get
Yes.
this the problem.
10 minutes, thank you. We've got 10 minutes to go, so what I'd like to do is to spend a few of those minutes looking at how everything you've just talked about, how does it physically impact on you? What does stress do to you? And then I want to spend the last bit on just a couple of coping strategies, particularly some of the newer thoughts which are out there now. So as we look down this, I mean, we've broken this up into cognitive, physical, emotional and behavioural things that it impacts upon you. What there about the cognitive aspect of when you're under stress, you're not working as well as you should. What do you see is cognitively an impairment for you because of stress at work? I love it. Now, nurses are great. Nurses are particularly great at explaining things with their hands. And Sandra just told me all of it. She never said a word, but she did this. We are great at that. It's a bit like saying, well, you know that thing over there, and it just kind of does this, and, you know, we're great with hands, so we do that well. So, yeah, and particularly it links to what Sylvie was just talking about, is sometimes when we're distressed, we really find it hard to have confidence in our decision making. We question ourselves relentlessly, don't we? And if we do that, often that may then lead to another behaviour, which can be where we're either irritable, but I hate these ones. How often do you feel that you're not in control? And I hope infrequently we don't come across this. That's a bad place to be, where you feel that your workplace and your role within it leaves you with a sense of hopelessness. I think this is usually that step before saying, I can't do this anymore, I've got to walk away. So very negative places that we can go. The sense of isolation can be very problematic for some, and this is one that Sylvie's pointed out. I'll let Sylvie take that one on.
I think every nurse has that as an issue, because we can heal 100 wounds and we won't give them another thought. But we have that one arterial wound that we're never going to heal, or that one cancerous wound we're never going to heal, and we blame ourselves completely and we worry about it and we think about it, but we don't think about the hundreds that we've healed. And I think we're all guilty of that as nurses, sort of holding ourselves responsible for something we can do nothing about. And I think that gives a lot of stress when we don't need it.
I think it's the same with criticism though. You can have one criticism and 100 thank yous.
Yeah,
That's
but you
it.
remember the
That's
criticism.
it.
That's right.
No, you're spot on.
And there'll be physical things that we may experience as well, and I think there'll be things on that list that you may personally relate to. In the few minutes we've got left, I want to just share you something which is a quite new, it's not really a philosophy, but it's a new angle on the idea or concept of rest. So let me just get to that so that you can see it. Sandra Dalton Smith has kind of been the author of 2023, and I mean even beforehand, but last year there was a lot of discussion about what it is to actually rest and then have a better coping capacity for dealing with stress. And they broke it down into these 7 different types of rest that we may encounter. The idea of physical rest, we mostly think about that being sleep. You know, weren't we lucky last night? We all had that good old 80 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and we slept like a log, and it was the best thing out. We got out of bed this morning and we were rejuvenated, ready to take on the world. See, I knew you all felt it, I could see it. But the interesting thing about physical rest, it doesn't have to just all be about sleep. And in fact, even in here is the ability to exercise and go for walks and things. She talks about work being done about how we can rejuvenate and be somewhat refreshed just by having good exercise, which is something that you instigate for yourself in the way you like to do things. For instance, in the last couple of days, how many of you have just decided, no, I'm just going to go for a walk for 20 minutes, hear what the birds are sounding like, see what that creek that runs down the back of that park looks like, oh, there's fish in there, and this kind of stuff, to actually open yourself to the world around you just by being away from your workplace, away from home, and just being somewhere else. Have you all done that in the last week? Only one who's doing this. 2, cool.
Got a dog.
Got a dog, that's right. You could do what I did in Cornwall recently, and that is go down to there, and it is so packed out at this time of year. There was every man and his 3 dogs. That was a really busy place. I don't think there was any rest there. It was distress. I love this thing about the mental aspect of it. She talks about something I like to relate to myself. Do you ever remember as a kid being told by your teacher, by your mum or your dad, "Where are you? Come back into the room, you're off daydreaming again." Well, Sandra talks about the idea that a good daydream can actually be one of the things that helps you bring your mental stress down. When's the last time you gave yourself permission to have a bit of a daydream? You just had 5 minutes to look out the window and just wander off somewhere else, doing something else, seeing somebody else. And then you can just trawl those memories back in and just think, that's where I was for a little while. That's 5 minutes to go. So the idea of giving yourself permission to have a bit of a daydream, I just really related to. I thought that was marvellous that she's talking about that. When it comes to the spiritual element, it doesn't have to necessarily be a religious one. But the issues around keeping a diary might be great, having some meditation might be a good idea. But have you all heard of acts of kindness? That's mainly between you and somebody else, isn't it? Something you do unsolicited, something that can form a good connection between you and somebody else, or just an opportunity to do something you felt was the right thing. Well, that's not the act of kindness we're talking about. When's the last time you did an act of kindness for yourself? Consciously made an effort to do something that you like to do, time just for you, doing your own thing with no one saying no. Act of kind, I'm loving this. Look at the beautiful smile I'm seeing now. She's thinking, oh yeah, that'll be a nice idea. Maybe never, but we actually got to develop this, the idea to give ourselves an act of kindness, which could be something as simple as charging off and having that daydream. Another one I really like that she talks about is this idea of positive solitude. She's mainly talking about our connection. You know, our second brain, the thing that tells people where we are all of the time, every moment of every day. Have you ever just left that on purpose at home somewhere and disconnected? Have you found that within 10 minutes there's a bit of stress and anxiety because who's going to give me a message, and where was that email, and what about that phone call, and what about? It's the hard thing to do. But this positive solitude is not a bad way to go either as far as disconnecting. But these things, she often talks about them as being difficult to do, and they need to be practiced. You need to open yourselves up to it and do it. The last thing I wanted to share with you actually comes from here as well. You know, it talks about here being creative, and the word singing really appeals to me. I do not have a singing voice. I've been told it's much like a goose farting in the dark. So I won't impose that upon you whatsoever. But I work in a rehabilitation hospital. And one of the things that our hospital will do is at the end of lunch, we will have people coming together for communal singing. So we have our visiting doctors part of this group, nursing unit managers, our staff, our housekeepers, our patients, all come together for 15 minutes or so, and the music will vary, the songs will vary, but you actually hear a group of people who have got nothing that much in common, but hierarchy is broken down, the silos are no longer there, and people can actually talk to each other, having communicated with one another through sound and song. And it's a powerful thing, a brilliantly powerful thing, that just through the act of singing, people somehow connect and can feel so much better and more energised after this. Now, I'm not saying that all of us are going to be going out there starting a singing group. You know, we're not all going to be starting off the brand new latest band. But when's the last time that you were with a group of people unafraid of what you sounded like, knowing that as a group of people all together, you will be brilliant? A remarkable thing, so keep that in mind, because I can tell you, having had this experience, it is potently powerful. One last thing I'd like to share with you. Part of our work at the Rehabilitation Hospital is working with folks who have lymphedema. And one of our lead physicians talks about how you can do a simple exercise which actually refreshes your brain. And in fact, we're encouraged to do it every couple of hours. And it's a physical thing where you just find a space that you're comfortable to be within. And you need to be able to stretch out, you need room. The idea is you're using the full expansion of your chest to breathe deep, because the CSF from your brain then drains out through the cervical lymph nodes, and lymph is where you take away waste. And if you can take waste away, you've then got more room for arterial flow, nutrients and oxygen to come to the brain. So as we're about to leave this room, the exercise is this. You close your eyes, breathe in through your nose, but then expand your arms. You are breathing in this entire time, and with your chest fully expanded, then breathe out. Do this 3 times. Stretch it out, breathe in, breathe deep, and you'll find you feel your lungs fully expand. But in this action, you are actually draining your waste and you're re-energizing your brain. We now try and encourage our workplaces to get everybody to do that every couple of hours, and you're all looking like idiots together. But it is remarkable how it makes you feel. Our time has vanished, but thank you so much for being with me today. Have a good rest of the day.